Hey everyone, today I'm going to show you how to replace the knock sensor on a Honda S2000. The knock sensor is something that is commonly broken on accident when replacing the clutch or replacing the starter. Over time, the plastic part of the sensor becomes exceptionally brittle and will break apart from the metal part of the sensor when it comes in contact with just about anything. In fact, I originally tried to film this video with a fully functional knock sensor and I ended up breaking it during the filming process. The first thing you want to do is jack up the car and get the entire car on jack stands. The next thing you want to do is unplug the wiring harness from the knock sensor connector. If your knock sensor is broken, the connector will likely be hanging around like this. Due to the myriad of hoses underneath the intake manifold, the best way to access the knock sensor and associated wiring harness is from underneath the car. Unfortunately, when working from underneath the car, you'll be working completely blind since you won't be able to see the knock sensor at all. You have to do it all by feel. Reach your arm up alongside the engine block and behind the starter. Feel around for the knock sensor wiring harness, trace it to the knock sensor connector, and unplug it from the plastic part of the knock sensor. In order to make room for a socket and ratchet, undo the rubber fuel line from the plastic clip holding it. With the knock sensor connector removed, you can remove the part of the knock sensor that is threaded into the engine block. In order to do this, you'll need a 24mm deep socket along with a universal joint. A 24mm deep socket is an unusual socket that you may need to buy just for this job. I'll have some links to some in the description box down below. Reach your arm up alongside the engine block and slip the 24mm socket with the universal joint over the knock sensor. At this point, you'll want to attach a ratchet to the universal joint and prepare it for a loosening motion. Now, you'll want to attach a pipe to the ratchet so that you can actually generate enough leverage to break the knock sensor loose. As you can see, I used a 1/2-inch ratchet with the jack handle. Once you break the knock sensor loose, you should be able to remove the pipe and the ratchet and the 24mm deep socket and then hand loosen the knock sensor until it is completely removed. Installation of the new knock sensor is pretty much the reverse of the removal. Reach your arm up alongside the engine block and hand tighten the knock sensor into the engine block as tight as possible. Then slip your 24mm deep socket and universal joint over the knock sensor until the socket hits the block. Attach a ratchet to the universal joint and prepare it for a tightening motion. Attach a pipe to the ratchet and torque down the knock sensor until it is snug. This should be about just one turn. I wasn't able to find a torque specification in the shop manual, but 23 foot-pounds seems to be the number floating around the internet that works well. You can use it if you want. Once tightened, carefully remove the ratchet. Then remove the 24mm deep socket and universal joint separately in order to minimize chances of damaging the knock sensor. Replace the rubber fuel line onto the plastic clip. Now you'll need to reinstall the knock sensor connector. Reach your arm up alongside the engine block and feel around for the knock sensor wiring harness. Once found, insert the connector into the knock sensor until the retaining tab clicks. Lastly, get your car off jack stands and lower it back down to the ground. If you enjoyed this video, hit the subscribe button and leave a comment down below for any DIY you'd like to see in the future.